Fantastic. And so I'm curious, how is that changed, adding that? I love the context windows. The thing, so I've played around with mine and I've always taken it off because I find how I'm using GPT varies so much throughout the day. There are times where I'm asking it to that I want to infer the context in the message that I'm getting. Sometimes I just want to ask it a wide open question. Should I have now that I'm thinking this through again, should I put that super prompt, in as that additional context, and kind of like what you are doing? And so you're getting GPT to ask you a couple clarifying questions. You're telling it to challenge you.
Yeah, absolutely. I would absolutely do that. And notice I changed it a little differently from the super prompt or the AI assistant prompt, because that was very specific for a given task. So you can use that prompt format as a template for creating any kind of AI assistant in copywriting or productivity or task management, all those things, right? That one was the previous example I gave was specific to productivity, right? This one, because I'm in Chat GPT, like you say, it could be for general stuff. It could be for research or just recipes, like you mentioned. That's why it's good to put in your hobbies so it knows a little more about you that way. But I didn't follow the exact format of the super prompt to keep things to address those generalities instead of business specific questions. So that's why I specifically said, hey, you are going to be great at answering anything I need.
Interesting. I love that, because I could see in different worlds. I mean, you've got the one context or custom instructions that say this is how you are going to be most helpful, and then for each individual kind of chat you have going, you can just say you've got Ava, you've got Scarlett, you've got whatever. I think I would personally go and name them after like all the great AI characters, and thinking I had to look it up. I'm not good with movies and people, but the film Her with Scarlett Johansson.
Yes, I love that. That was it was
Yeah,
a fantastic movie.
amazing movie. And then there's the other one where the AI is like a more physical.
There's
Drawing a blank on it.
iRobot. That's more AI meets robotics.
Yeah. Anyway,
That's the
this isn't a movie podcast, but if you haven't seen Her, or I highly recommend checking it out. And so for creating an AI assistant with the custom instructions, and you're giving it the kind of that super prompt, you could seed it. Like, what are some, I guess, what's your favorite that you've done so far? Like, I see the personal assistant. That makes sense. I'm curious. Yeah. What are some highlights? What are some of your favorites outside of the personal assistant?
favorite prompts, you mean, or
An AI assistants you've made that were not just like a personal assistant of like, help me, figure this
yeah.
out.
Copywriting by far. That's you can. It's great for copywriting because not only does it be super efficient for you because it can spit out like a tome in seconds, but you can give it. And I think most of your listeners probably know that, but I like it because you can tell it to act in a certain writing style. You can write in the style of Mark Twain or John Hemingway, or write in the style of Tom Clancy, or insert awesome author here, right? If you whatever writing style you like.
Totally. If you're an AE and you're listening to this and you're going, why are these two talking about writing on a sales podcast? My 2 cents is writing isn't my strongest point. Writing is probably not in my top 5 skills. I'm working on it. But in the early part of my sales career, especially if you're working for a smaller company that doesn't have a huge marketing team or product team where they're spitting out product documentation, customers are asking you for stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And I would, I think there's such an advantage to being on the front line of customer communication, that you learn and you pick up so many things. As a salesperson, you're not necessarily always classically trained in writing. Some of you might be, but to be able to take some of your responses to customers and say, hey, write a blog post. Hey, help me clarify this point. Help me create some content around this question that a customer is asking. You could take that question, you could give it the link to your website or the link to the page and say, hey, ChatGPT, answer this question for me, or what would be the best way to frame up the response to the question and fully answer what the customer's looking for. And so
Absolutely.
this is kind of the reason why, as I see that our AEs and our sales folks are spending more time as mini content creators. And I think it's super helpful to be able to spend a few minutes to train a bot to do this right, so that you're not doing it over and over and over again.
Well, and if I can just pick up on that thread of, hey, why are we talking about books and writing on a sales podcast? If I can connect the dots for some of your listeners, writing is sales. It's used everywhere. How many authors do you know that have world-class businesses that they launched through a book, right? Look at SEO and right, exactly. Case in point. And look at SEO and blog writing, and whether it's user-generated content or any kinds of content creation. You need to write video scripts for YouTube if your medium is video. All these things involve writing, which are directly tied to sales in a business capacity. So there's huge implications there.
100%. And to zoom in even farther, if you're an AE, an SDR, one of the things your marketing folks or anybody on LinkedIn is going to tell you is to start building the brand. And one of the biggest bottlenecks for me was always my writing ability. I had great ideas, or at least ideas that I thought were great, and perspectives that I wanted to share. But I found the time it took, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze, because I would get stuck on, oh, how do I frame this? And then I'd sit there for 7 minutes on something that doesn't really add that much to the article, and I'd just get stuck and I'd spin. Now that I give myself permission to write a very crappy first draft, and I have ChatGPT to rely on when I need to, hey, help me explain this differently, or explain this in more clearly, is probably something I say to, is the most common thing I will say to ChatGPT is like, here's an idea, explain this more clearly, or rearrange this.
Yeah.
The ability to have an AI chatbot sitting there in your GPT and say, hey, help me write an article about, or a short blog post, or a LinkedIn post about X, a LinkedIn post about Y, and just have it automatically spit out, is extremely powerful.
Absolutely. And from a sales perspective, let me supercharge that idea even more on how you can use ChatGPT for objection handling. If you took, and which is directly tied to sales, of course, more objections you can handle, more sales you're going to make, and more objections you can overcome. So what if you took your FAQs, your most frequently asked questions, your most frequent objections you come across as a salesperson, pump those into ChatGPT and ask them say, hey, what's the best way I should be able to handle them? Or can you write me a script on handle this objection? Or pump in all your objections that you have in a list form and turn those into FAQs, and then put those on your website. Oh my gosh, that's a beautiful use case for that. And it ties directly to sales.